The Beehive with my able assistant Maddie Carroll. We need some smoke to pacify the bees. It calms them down, and I start the smoker with some paper, then card, and then I've been using some rotten dry wood. This gives a nice cool smoke. So you load your smoker up, get the bellows puffing away, and then pop the lid on and you're off. When you want to open a beehive up, you give it a couple of puffs at the entrance, give it a few seconds for the bees to calm down, take the lid off, a little puff again, and then the top board is called a crown board. You take this off, knock the bees off with a sharp tap, and then you have a look inside the hive. A quick puff of smoke to drive the bees down, and I'm noticed some brace comb there. So I take the first frame out, which in my hives is a dummy, no bees on it at all. That gives me a bit of space in order to look at the first frame. This first frame felt light, so I went straight to the second frame. Lift it out very carefully, not rolling bees, and in the middle I noticed there's loads of pollen, lots of different coloured pollen, orange and yellow in there. Around the top of the frame is an arch of sealed honey, and these bees I'm pointing to have got pollen sacs on. So I pop the frame back in, being careful not to roll the bees, and oops, there's a sting. That's first of the year. I don't like that. My fault. So pull the next frame out, and there, at the brown cells, that's brood, sealed brood. Underneath there are the larvae and pupae, and around the outside are the uncapped larvae, and then where at the edge are eggs. So I'm just using the back of my hand to move the bees about. I can see the eggs then. And if you do that, they're very warm. They're lovely to feel. They don't sting at all. And suddenly I see the queen. She needs to be marked. And so I drop a little cage on top of her and put it down ever so gently. I push the cage down onto her to squeeze her tight so she doesn't run about. It's very flexible little mesh, and I just use a white marker. Each year has a different colour, but I only use white. Lift it up, let her walk about a bit for it to dry off, and then release her. It's all very quick. You have to make sure that she is accepted. Sometimes the bees can dive onto the queen and ball her, but she seems to be running about quite nicely. I like to mark the queen because then I know which year she's been born. This is last year's queen, and that means if I find a queen without a mark on, it's a new queen. So I put the frames all back in, dummy board goes back in, and I'll take off the brace comb. Bees will often make brace comb where the gap is too big. They like to fill a gap up. They don't like too much space in the hive. The next thing to go on is a queen excluder. This stops the queen coming upstairs, and the workers can get through that, but the queen can't. So when I put the next box on, which are the supers or honey boxes, I only have honey in there and there's no eggs, larvae and brood. Crown board next, and then make sure everything is sealed and tight, and finally you have the lid. And that's the hive finished. Quite often when you look at the entrance to a hive, you see how hopeless these bees are. There's a worker bee there. She keeps smashing her head against the wall. She has another go. She backs off, tries it again, and in she comes. Here she comes now, trying again. Oh, she can't do it. She can't do this. Bang, 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 and then finally makes it.